Breakfast was ordinary. By early afternoon, your stomach looks like it belongs to someone 6 months pregnant. Your waistband is suddenly uncomfortably tight. You didn't overeat. You didn't eat anything unusual. And yet, somehow, your midsection has visibly, measurably expanded. The obvious explanation is gas. Too much of it, trapped, pushing your stomach outward like a balloon. Here's the part that should stop you. When researchers have actually measured the amount of gas inside people during a bloating episode, in many cases, it isn't elevated at all. Something else is inflating that balloon, and it isn't extra air. To understand what's really happening, we have to follow two separate stories that most people assume are one and the same. How much gas is actually inside your gut, and why your belly visibly pushes outward. Those two things sound identical. Gastroenterology research over the past 2 decades has shown again and again that they frequently are not.
Let's start with the part everyone already suspects: gas production itself. Certain carbohydrates, a group researchers call FODMAPs, an acronym for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols, found in foods like beans, wheat, onions, garlic, and certain fruits, aren't fully absorbed in your small intestine. Instead, they travel further down, where trillions of bacteria in your gut ferment them for their own fuel. Piece 1. That fermentation process produces gas, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and in some people, methane, as a natural byproduct. This part of the story is well established and uncontroversial. So far, this matches the intuitive explanation perfectly. Eat gas-producing foods, produce more gas, feel more bloated. Case closed. Except researchers kept running into a stubborn, inconvenient finding. When they directly measured intestinal gas volume in people who reported severe bloating, using techniques ranging from imaging to gas infusion studies, total gas volume in bloated individuals was often statistically similar to people who didn't report bloating at all, even after eating the exact same gas-producing meal.
Piece 2, and the actual reveal of this story. In a substantial number of cases, the amount of gas isn't the problem. Something else is deciding whether that same ordinary amount of gas turns into a visible, uncomfortable bulge or passes through largely unnoticed. That something else lives not in your intestines, but in a muscle most people never associate with digestion at all: your diaphragm. Under normal conditions, when gas builds up inside your gut, your body has an elegant, largely automatic way of making room for it. Your diaphragm rises slightly, and your abdominal wall muscles contract, gently redistributing the extra volume without any visible change to your silhouette. It's a coordinated, mostly invisible accommodation. Piece 3. Researchers studying this, including work led by gastroenterologists Fernando Azpiroz and colleagues in Barcelona, using imaging techniques to directly observe abdominal wall and diaphragm behavior during bloating episodes, identified something they termed the abdomino-phrenic reflex, and found that in people prone to visible bloating, this reflex often runs in reverse. Instead of the diaphragm rising to accommodate gas, it paradoxically descends. Instead of the abdominal wall muscles contracting to hold everything in, they relax outward. The net effect isn't more gas being crammed into a fixed space. It's a fixed, or even ordinary amount of gas being pushed forward and downward into a visibly expanding cavity, because the muscles that would normally contain it have, in effect, stopped doing their job. which reframes the entire balloon image people reach for instinctively. The belly isn't inflating because more air is being pumped in. It's protruding because the muscular wall that would normally hold a completely ordinary amount of gas in place has relaxed at exactly the wrong moment, closer to a poorly latched door swinging open than an overfilled container. This leaves one more genuinely interesting question. Why would this reflex misfire in some people and not others, given the same gas, the same meal, the same intestines?
Current research points toward visceral hypersensitivity, a heightened sensitivity in the nerve endings lining the gut wall, particularly common in people with irritable bowel syndrome. In sensitized guts, a completely ordinary volume of gas can trigger a disproportionate signal, and that signal appears able to influence the same reflex arc controlling the diaphragm and abdominal muscles, misfiring the reflex in the outward distending direction rather than the normal accommodating one. Stress and the state of the autonomic nervous system are also active areas of research here, given how closely the gut and diaphragm are wired into the same neural circuits involved in breathing and the vagus nerve, though researchers are still working out exactly how strong and consistent that connection is across different people. None of this means gas volume never matters, or that diet has no role. Certain foods genuinely do produce more fermentation gas than others, and reducing high FODMAP foods measurably helps a meaningful portion of people with chronic bloating. And persistent, severe, or painful bloating, especially alongside other symptoms, is worth discussing with a doctor, rather than assuming it's simply this reflex at work, since it can occasionally signal other underlying conditions worth ruling out. But for the ordinary, familiar version, the belly that visibly swells after an unremarkable meal, out of proportion to how much was actually eaten, current research points towards something more specific than too much gas. A muscular reflex running in reverse, turning an entirely normal amount of gas into a visible, uncomfortable balloon. Somewhere right now, someone is loosening their waistband after an ordinary lunch, certain their body somehow produced an abnormal amount of gas from a completely normal meal. In many cases, it didn't. A diaphragm that should have quietly risen, instead sank. A wall of muscle that should have gently held its shape, instead let go. The balloon was never overfilled. The latch simply came undone.